everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad, Gustafson, and I share two books that we love and we think you should read. When, Brad?
Right now.
I love it. That's become your signature move.
I know. I feel like it is a signature. So I don't know. Until I find something better. That's all I got, Jen.
You know what? It's better than mine. So it's perfect.
No, I like yours. Anyway.
Do I have a move?
I don't know. I kind of like it's just authoritative. You know, like
I'm like
two books you should read, and then I don't really know what to do with it. Like right now. Oh my gosh.
I love it. Well, what you been reading this week, my friend?
Oh, Jen. So I was going to talk about a different book, but I just finished one and it was so ridiculously good. I had to bump
Don't you love it?
Yeah. Oh my
I love
gosh.
it when that happens.
Yeah, me too. That I was kind of before the show just thinking like, how am I going to do this justice? It was so good and enjoyable. So I just thought, well, just do the best you can talking about it, and Jenn will redeem or save whatever I mess up somehow, because you always
that
do,
is
Jenn.
So not true, but I'm excited. Anytime you tell me that a book is so good you had to talk about it this week, then that just puts me on the edge of my seat. I am ready to hear about what you've been reading.
Yeah, I'm going to set the stage here a little bit with something a lot of us can probably connect to. So imagine being on a school bus going on a field trip with a class, basically, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of educators that's we can work with that. But then imagine you're on that bus and a worldwide event happens, like a flood caused by a sinister alien race, let's say.
But
and it wipes out
as an example, just a random example. Yeah.
It wipes out the entire Earth, or well, technically what it does is there's a chemical reaction that creates a flood, and really the only thing that's left is this bus, this field trip bus with a few adults and the kids, and then some taller buildings that collapse and get mashed together in the flood, basically.
Wow.
Like I guess a small city, if you will. So imagine how hard and like different that would be. Now this story takes place in the future, so there's a lot more to it than that, but that's basically what happens to create Flood City, right? By Daniel José Older, and I think I've book talk Dactyl Hill Squad before.
Yes.
So same author. And we all have our books and our favorites. I love Dactyl Hill Squad, but oh my gosh, I love this. So
yay!
So here's like some of the reasons why I really do think people should read this one right now. The epic world building that Daniel does in this story, I don't know how he does it and brings in pockets of this new futuristic thing they have going on. But basically there's this, I alluded to this sinister species or people that actually, they're called the chemical barons, because I guess they experimented with chemicals and created this flood, or so the rumor goes. But in earlier experiments, they created a whole species of people called the vapors. So in leading up to try to flood out the earth or reclaim the earth by chemical means. So there's this race of vapors that are kind of cloud-like, I guess as the name implies. Most animals are dead because of flood, but there's this weird evolved bird called the iguana gull. And basically they can tear apart spacecraft. So it's not like a plane that you don't want to hit a bird because it might mess the engine. Like these things, the claws can shred spacecraft. Yeah, so that's kind of a vicious thing. And they play a role in the story as well. And what else? Oh, you and I have talked about this before, how fun it is when authors break up the text a little bit with kind of unconventional text features. This has several spattered throughout the book at just the right time, but one of the most prevalent ones is called the Flood City Gazette. So
I love it.
Here's what it looks like, and it has a reoccurring sections that readers can look forward to. So we get the rations report, like how they're rationing food, because you can imagine if the world is underwater, like that's a problem.
Sure.
What I didn't mention, Jenn, is the people of Earth were another alien species of these blue people. I forget. Oh, they're called the Star Guard. Very official name, kind of save the people of Earth. They give them food rations, but the people of Earth have grown kind of resentful. They're like, how helpful really are these people now? They're actually kind of getting in the way and not giving the liberty that the Star Guard maybe thinks they are, and that creates friction and little rebellions and things like that. But anyway, on the Flood City Gazette, there are all these reoccurring things, updates on the tide, because the tide obviously is pretty important. Iguana gull updates, the updates on the vapors that I mentioned, and then the chemical barons as well. So I feel like I should probably just give a teeny bit of the storyline too, because I talked a little bit about the world or the components of it. But within like what I think kids and readers will just love are the diverse array of characters that all have their own strengths and motives, and sometimes confusing motives, misinformed motives. You know, the more the character learns, the more they grow and evolve. But the story, I would say, centers on Max and Yala, his sister, or Yala, and their mom. Actually, their mom and dad were on that first. I think they survived. Like they were the founders, they called them, on that field trip school bus. So,
wow.
But now Max and Yala are growing up, probably teenagers, and they're, you know, when I say in the future, that really is spacecraft. They're cruising around on jet boots.
Wow.
And Max loves music. You know, he has passions and things, and is like the head of this orchestra. And basically, they come in direct conflict with the chemical barons. Like that does come to a head, and the chemical barons attack. And I always say, I read this somewhere, but part of the sign of a good book is how bad the what's the technical literary term for that? The bad person,
the villain,
antagonist.
Yes, sure.
Yes. Woo!
Yay!
Sorry, I got
Look
a little too impressed with
I
myself
love
on that one. Yeah. Hello, no. But anyway, the antagonist in this story is, God, I wrote it down somewhere. Goodness gracious. Anyway, he's a real bad dude, like scary, and somehow he evolves and changes and gets even worse. And I'm not going to give any of that away.
I was so waiting for you to say somehow he evolves and changes and we like him, but no, he gets even worse.
No, he started out bad, and like it's just brutal. So then what that does is it creates a need for the good in people to come together and to get it figured out and to confront that evil force. So I know I didn't do this one justice, but I will say on 2 nights ago, you know, when you're towards the end of a book, I don't know how you are, but you're like, I gotta finish this thing because you're so excited, and there's just certain moments where you can't put a book down. Well, it was really late, and I kind of overestimated. I must have had more of the book left than I thought, because Deb's like, Brad, it's late, like you're gonna be tired tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, I wasn't as close as I thought. I think I was just too into it, so I had to call it a night with still a.
You had to give up with
I did.
I've been there.
And I was tired the next day too. But anyway, then I was able to go home and finish. So good, so good. I think kids will love this epic world and sci-fi and all the sub storylines and the big characters, and how, I don't know how Daniel did this. And here's a thing I thought of in the very beginning of this book. In Dactyl Hill Squad, I remember the author introduced quite a few characters rather quickly, and I was like, wow, I wonder if this will be similar. Somehow he kind of did give us a lot, but it was chunked or introduced in a way that made sense. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is epic, like edge of my seat epic. And he did it so well, so artfully. So, okay, that was my random potpourri of
that's okay. It's like a real conversation. I mean, that's how real readers talk about books.
Yes,
you know? That's exactly it. I love it. And I also love it when you have high expectations for a reader because you've enjoyed their previous books and they live up to it. And sometimes they even blow them away. So I love that. That's awesome. And it sounds like the kind of book that would just hook readers right away and keep them interested throughout.
Yeah, and my hope, it doesn't feel like it was written to have a sequel, right? Like, you know, sometimes you can tell like, oh, they're planning a bunch, but he really could do that and have a series, and I would eat it up. Like this would be if that happened, this would be right up there in my favorite series ever. That's how much I loved this book.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I love it. And I also love, when our reading lives are sort of parallel during the week, because even though the book I read this week is very different from yours, there are some parallels to our journey this week. First of all, I teach a class in young adult literature for Rutgers University. And I try to focus that class on books that have been published in the previous 24 months, because I feel like my students who are all moving, they're all moving to be librarians of some type. And probably the libraries they're going to work in will have books that are older than that. I want to expose them to newer things, right? So always in the month or so before that class starts, I'm like feverishly trying to read really new releases so that I can cycle out some that are a little bit older than that 24 months and put some new really great books in there. So that's what I've like, my reading life has really been consumed by those things, like trying to read these books for this class. And one of those that I have been reading, it's in that list, has just stood out with me and like stuck with me. I keep thinking about these characters. I keep thinking about this story. It won't like leave my heart. We all have books like that. And I've been trying to think, like you were talking about, how can I book talk this book? Because I was worried about not doing it justice in the exact same way that you were talking about. So I want to reveal the book first, I think. And then I want to I've decided that the way to do it is to read a small part of the introduction. But I want to show off this gorgeous cover first. The book is called Firekeeper's Daughter. And it's by Angeline Boulley. And I looked up her name to make sure I could pronounce it properly. But this cover first drew me to it. But then I want to read the first page of this book to you. And then I'll tell you a little bit about the story. But if this first page doesn't hook you, I don't know what will. Okay. You ready, Brad?
I'm ready. I'm already hooked because that cover reminds me of the ink. Inked book a little bit, which I love that. So
yes.
I'm already putty in your hands, but go ahead.
All right. I am a frozen statue of a girl in the woods. Only my eyes move, darting from the gun to their startled expression. Gun, shock. Gun, disbelief. Gun, fear. Thump, 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 thump. The snub-nosed revolver shakes with tiny tremors from the jittery hand in my face. I'm gonna die. My nose twitches at a greasy sweetness, familiar, vanilla and mineral oil, double WD-40, something used to clean the gun maybe, more scents, pine, damp moss, skunky sweat, and cat pee. The thump, the thump, the thump, the thump. The jittery hand makes a hacking motion with the gun, as if wielding a machete instead. Each diagonal slice toward the ground gives me hope, better a random target than me. But then terror grips my heart again, the gun, back at my face. Mom, she won't survive my death. One bullet will kill us both. A brave hand reaches for the gun, fingers outstretched, demanding, give it. Now, the thump, I'm thinking of my mother when the blast changes everything. Boom. Okay, so that's the opening page of Firekeeper's Daughter, which is about a girl named Donna Fontaine, who is just graduating from high school. And a lot of stuff has been going on to change her plans. Her original plan was to head off to medical school, where she'd been accepted. She had been planning her whole life to be a doctor. But some things have happened at home, which means that have made it important that she stay home. And home is not necessarily always a comfortable place for her. Donna's parents are not together. Her mom's family are the Fontaines, and they are descendant from the original colonists who settled that area of Michigan where they live. And her father's family are known as the Firekeepers, who are part of the Ojibwe tribe, who were there before the Fontaines arrived. And Donna doesn't feel like she fits quite in either one of those worlds. But then something happens, and I'm not going to at all tell you what, but it's a situation in which Donna must go undercover to help the FBI investigate a series of missing people in her community, including some of her relatives. And the book starts with that scene in the woods, and then the rest of it rolls first slowly, but then like a snowball, like with faster and faster and faster momentum back to that scene and then beyond. And I don't want to tell you any more because everyone's a suspect. I don't want to give any of it away. But I will tell you that I'm kind of a slow reader. And so a book like this is intimidating to me. It's like a 400, almost a 500-page masterpiece. And I finished it in 3 nights because, like you, I could not put it down. Wow. So it's called Firekeeper's Daughter. I think it's going to win the award for the most beautiful cover of the year, perhaps. And I think you should read it right now.
Incredible, Jen. So they always say like the sign of a good book or a well-written book is each paragraph you want to keep going, each page you want to keep going.
Yes.
Well, your book talk has me like, I'm like, don't stop, Jen, tell me more. After you read that first page, I wanted to like pause the show and go to a bookstore and buy that thing. That holy cow, Jen.
Same with you. I feel like my husband always says, okay, I'm ready for the Brad Gustafson book order, because after we chat, I always feel like I have to buy a book. But that's what the pleasure of this show is, to be able to share books we loved. And I really did love this one. I keep thinking about that whole community. And also the other thing I want to say about it is that I alternated a lot of times when I'm reading a really big book like that, because I do read slowly and sometimes I'm intimidated by a giant book. I will alternate between the print and the audio. And sometimes that doesn't always work. Sometimes the audiobook doesn't work for me, but a lot of times that's a good strategy for me to like listen to some of it and then read some. I feel like I'm chipping away at it or something. It feels more manageable. And I love the audiobook for this one so much because there's a lot of Ojibwe language that's used in the book, and just being able to hear it pronounced correctly and not me trying to decide how it's supposed to sound in my mind. That was really powerful. I just really loved it. So this book is definitely like I would say an 8th grade or above read, but for those kids, if you have readers who are into audiobooks, it's a good selection for that too.
Oh, very cool. And I didn't mention this, but I would say like 3rd grade and up, which is pretty cool. For this is a hefty book, but it's just so accessible, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear you talk a little bit about your reading life and sometimes liking to alternate, because I don't know if anyone else does this, but when I read, I like what I've found myself doing recently or the last few years is I'll read and I get so into it. I actually like stepping away, reflecting, doing something else. And somehow I am able to enjoy the story more. And then I'll go back. So I don't know, like a woodpecker, like they're not long breaks, but just even if it's as quick as like checking Twitter or something. I know that sounds stupid, but it helps me process and enjoy. And then I go back. So that's...
those brain breaks are important because we know it's just like working any muscle. When you're concentrating on working your brain in a specific way, giving it a break, a moment to breathe and relax, actually strengthens you for taking on the next part. Even if you're enjoying the book, even if it doesn't feel like a task, if you're just reading it for joy, those breaks are good for your brain. So that's great.
Awesome.
I love that. Wow. Cool. Well, 2 great books this week. As always, I can't remember a show where we've ever recommended a bad book. I don't think that's what we've ever done, Brad. So if our 3.5 viewers want to check out the rest of our videos and our great recommendations, where can they go?
Well, grab a pencil, people, because there's a bonus website this week. I'm going to give you the website, but then I have another one for you that'll knock your socks off. And it relates to what I'm about to say now. So I don't usually do this when I'm reading, but I was about halfway through this one this time, and I tweeted out, I'm like, this is ridiculously good. I just couldn't contain myself. And the author got back to me and he said, hey, have you seen this website yet? And I'm like, no, I haven't, because I'm just discovered the book, right? So the first website, before I share the archive of other books Jen and I have talked about before, It's a project. It's called 826digital.com. So write that down.
Cool.
Trust me, it's worth it. And basically, it's this project where if you're whatever 3rd through 7th or 12th graders reading this, they can get involved in writing for the Flood City Gazette, kind of, sort of, right? So templates. And Jen, when I went and explored some of this stuff, I kid you not, I wanted to like cross off my to-do list, pause reading, and I wanted to do some of the Flood City Gazette writing. But I'm like, no, Brett, you got so much to do, like, and part of that was just home stuff I had to work on, or stuff I wanted to do. So I didn't do it, but it looked really cool. I did check it out, and I wanted to throw that out there to people. So that's 826digital.com for that.
Awesome.
I would say authentic writing opportunity. And then the website where we keep a list of our titles is, oh my gosh, it's been a little while, bit.ly/read_this_now. Write that one down as well.
I love it. Thank you, my friend, for a great book talk this week. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Happy reading.